near Kingsway, Accra. You can contact us on 0503 786 776 or 02408 06354. Also 0531 600360, and connect with us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at Advo Publishing. Don't settle for less. Choose the best. Advocate Publishing Company, empowering young minds one textbook at a time. Thinking Publishing, think Advocate Publishing.
Yes, next. Hey, Nadia Benson, Asamo.
Me didn't tum Mr. Femi Calico, just call me cockroach. Now, Mr. Femi once now.
Hey, that's you.
Improve car.
Yeah.
Captain Mosquito, double the accent. Me did it, Sasso spray. Mr. Femi Sasso quell. Yeah, go to my Sasso.
Come tum preko.
In my line of work, a confident smile is everything. Kel Charcoal Toothpaste keeps me on top of my game and ensures my smile is always radiant and bright.
With the tiring nature of my job, we spend several hours under the scorching sun. To keep our teeth white and our breath fresh all the time, we use none other than Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. You're on a Kessie and in a kit one.
Samayo kendini. Who be here? Semecha sapapadia to amame manfo. Kel Charcoal's natural ingredients. And a bomb is so buying. A man is swing. Nesasu mama hotoso e will beg you.
Kel Charcoal Toothpaste. Choose Kel Charcoal Toothpaste for anti-cavity, whiter teeth, and fresher breath all day. Available in 80 gram and 150 gram. Grab yours today.
Kel, happy smile. This advert is FDA approved.
MGL Logistics and Supply is your trusted partner, providing seamless solutions for all your procurement needs. From sourcing products to managing imports and exports, we ensure smooth and efficient transactions every step of the way. Whether you require goods from across the globe or need assistance in exporting your products to international markets, we got you covered. General trading is at the heart of our expertise. We specialize in a wide range of products, catering to various industries and markets. As a trusted dealership in building materials, we provide high-quality products that meet the demands of our construction projects. Additionally, we act as manufacturers' representatives, connecting producers with distributors. Our expertise in logistics is the backbone of our operations. We plan and execute transportation and delivery of goods, ensuring they reach their destination on time and in optimal condition. MGO Logistics and Supply, guaranteed satisfaction.
Zoomlion Private Services Limited, your waste management expert. One of the most innovative aspects of our business is our commitment to adopting cutting-edge technologies and sustainable practices in the waste management industry. We have invested in modern waste collection trucks, digital payment systems. We have also implemented efficient waste segregation systems and also developed strategic partnerships with our various stakeholders in the waste management value chain. I can talk about our innovative approach that enables us to reduce waste disposal costs, also minimize our environmental impact, and provide our clients with seamless customer service experience. We are the waste management experts.
Changing, so should you. If you're dreaming, don't be afraid. And in the valleys, keep your head up high. Dare to dream with Puma drinks. Puma, Puma. Yeah, believe it, you can achieve. Puma, Puma. Oh yeah, clap your hands for the whole new vibe. Make me say, oh yeah, come alive. Puma, Puma. Let me hear you. Puma. Puma drinks, a whole new vibe. Another quality product from Casa Precon.
This advert is FD.
Right, you're watching Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. The show is also live on 94.1 FM. We will proceed with our conversation. Mr. or Dr. Jonathan Asante-Okyere is a political analyst, a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast and executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies. That's the AISS. Paul Adomotri is also here with us. He's a senior broadcast journalist. He's the host of Good Evening Ghana and also a former board chair of the Ghana Airports Company Limited. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for the time. It's always a pleasure. And good morning.
Right.
Thank
you.
Right.
Look, I want us to wrap up on this conversation. I can pick Paul's thoughts on it as well before we move to our next topic. Yes, I had to interrupt you because I had to take a break. Because I asked a question about whether you didn't think that it was high time that people declare who they are, which is whether I'm in the academic space or civil society space and say, look, I align to this ideology or political ideology or that political, so that it saves all of us the wahala of, so you, all this while you're NDC or NPP, you've been pretending and so on and so forth. Do we have to get to that point?
Well, I cannot make a blank statement or response to that. Others may decide to do so.
Okay.
But the difficulty of that particular position is the fact that, so if your institution that you identify yourself with, if it is a party, if it comes to power, and that which they are doing is not right, wouldn't you be in a position to say that I disagree with this?
Right.
You see, so if you go on that tangent, then it's going to be House of Folk and Kotoko support, kind of relation.
Right.
Where I can see that Chastela is doing very well. He's a good player, but because he's in House of Folk, and I am a Kotoko fan, he's a bad player.
Okay.
I don't think that as human beings, that is where we have to get to.
Okay.
Because football is, that example is just fanaticism. But this one, you need to reason. If the thing is not right, you have to say it is not right. If it is good, you have to be able to say.
Okay.
Now, if it's not right, and you may have to couch your language in such a way that it doesn't become vituperative, I don't think that will mean a compromise.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you would have made your point known anyway.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think about this topic?
The civil society, what
academia
society
drafted into government, and they talk about, so you belong here, you belong there. So for some of these political watchers, once you're drafted into government, it means all this while you've been a member of that party in opposition. Now, questioning, is that fair to that person, that appointee, just because they were vocal of a certain administration and then opposition wins power, they're drafted into government, and all of a sudden it makes them a member of that political tradition? And whether even in the first place, in principle, whether it's a good idea for political parties to be looking out for people in academia and civil society organizations and giving them appointments. And sometimes the complaints that some of these persons don't even know the party people, and so they go to them, and it's a problem. I'm sure you faced that too when you were made a board chair of Ghana Airports Company Limited, because somebody runs into you somewhere and says, you are an appointee of the government. Let me pay you more. I want this, I want that. Who are you? And they say, you see, Paul doesn't know our people. So
I guess it's a complex mix, but it's not all that complicated.
Okay.
The story comes up when journalists are appointed. That's when the first time the story came up that journalists are being appointed into the government, and therefore the government is reducing the critical edge of society. The first time the conversation came was when President Kufuor appointed Kabra Blea, who had been president of the Ghana Journalists Association, and Alhaji Haruna Atta, who had been a key editor for the Statesman newspaper. The Statesman newspaper in those days had declared a stand as an MPP newspaper. Alhaji Haruna Atta had edited it for a long time, so it wasn't surprising that he will join an MPP government. But the conversation was about journalists, and it came up again in 2017, and then it has continued. The question I'd always ask is, look at the Ghana Bar Association. There are MPP lawyers, the likes of Nana Akufo-Addo and all these people, Peter Alajete, Nuti, Fafa Kunyehia, Nena Megache, Samuel Okujeto. They are MPP lawyers, members of the Bar Association. Look at the other side, they are there. Larry Ajete, Alban Bagbin, they were all members and leaders of the Ghana Bar Association. They were political. About lawyers, there's no problem. About journalists, there has to be a problem. About lecturers, civil society, there has to be a problem. I don't quite get that. Medical Association, Kwame Adokufo, Dr. Kwame Safuedu, they were MPP doctors. The other side, Kote Papafio was a NDC regional chairman, a very key member of the Ghana Medical Association. No problem about that. Journalists, problem. Civil society, lecturers, problem. I really don't get it. We have to de-hypocritize and let the society be. Let people be able to express themselves and let them freely channel their ideas so that in the end we'll have a competition of great ideas. If you're a political science lecturer and you are a left-wing thinker, you are more likely to support the NDC. Let us give the opportunity for the person to be able to express that. Then he can help the NDC with his best policies because he's identified one way or the other. So he's not a neutral who doesn't mind. Civil society organizations, Imani is a right-wing civil society organization. That's a setup. So you will see Imani being critical of social things, free SHS. They don't quite agree with the principle that government should develop along those lines. So that's their political philosophy. Somehow you can find Franklin Kujo supporting the NDC one way or the other, but that's a different conversation. So the bottom line is that once human beings go through a society, they go through a culture, they
maybe
go through challenges.
He's been less critical, but not necessarily supporting the NDC. Maybe he's less critical of this government. I'm talking about Franklin Kujo.
No, I'm saying it's been said.
So it's been said, okay.
That Franklin Kujo has been supporting the NDC, but that's a different
conversation. But do you agree?
I'm not necessarily.
Do you agree?
Oh, I've not even looked at that.
Okay.
We can talk about that another time. So I lost my chain of thoughts. Anyway, the academic people must be allowed to express themselves. The lawyers, civil society. I was saying that once a person grows up through a certain situation, those situations naturally shape you into left or right. That's natural for every human being. The centrist philosophy began when it was thought that political theory should correct the demerits of the left and the demerits of the right. It was thought through thinking that the demerit was really extremism. And so right extremists were terrible, and left extremists were also terrible, as they call them communists. And right extremists, they call them these immigration people, don't come to my country, and all of that. They are right extremists. Charlie Kirk, those people. So the theory thought that, look, there has to be a way in which you can balance out a little bit. And then centrism became the popular notion and all of that. And then all these World Bank and all of these people bought into center left, center right, nomenclature. And so it became something. So yes, every human being, by the time you come out one way or the other, something in you has drawn you closer to this. So if you then develop a skill, it is okay to apply that skill in support of that political theory, political philosophy, economic theory. It should be allowed. So once you become, there are some institutions that must strictly be of state orientation, like the Ghana Police Service, like the Ghana Military Service, the Armed Forces, and maybe some other 1 or 2 institutions. The way we can achieve that is to have a state philosophy or a state policy, what Dr. Nimoy Thompson has been talking about for a very long time. Once we get that state superstructure, these state institutions will now align themselves into that superstructure. Then the rest competes.
Give us an example.
Of the superstructure?
No, countries that have a state philosophy.
Oh, yeah, the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah, even the United States to a large extent. Okay. The United States Armed Forces, you can't partisan there.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe when you become a top general, you may be appointed, but they don't do partisan stuff there. So these state institutions fit into there. So the state philosophy may be that we support women generally.
Okay.
So the state institutions are there to enforce that. So in those state institutions, the gender support is paramount to partisan anything. So if there's an opportunity for a woman, no political considerations can happen. So if you are the president, the next person you are appointing is a woman.
Right.
If you find an MPP woman, it's up to you. You can find an NDC woman, but it is a woman because the state policy is in support of a gender parity at a certain level. State policy may support free education at the basic level. So everything goes into free education at the basic level. So if you are a DCE and somebody says that in support of free education, I want to build this, you can't think about it and decide whether it will help MPP or no. That's state policy. So if we can get there, and we should be able to get there, it's not complicated. If we can get there, design the state, then we can allow people to express themselves.
Right.
Because we have not designed the state, people are afraid a little bit. You go and express yourself this way, MPP comes, NDC 0. And that's also part of our winner takes all constitution. So you are a doctor, you like MPP, but you can't say it. Because if you are not careful and you are known, when MPP lose power, you will not get any business, irrespective of your skill or whatever. So he's also quite worried.
But that's a reality.
But so that's what we need to address. And part of it is addressing it through the Constitution. I was quite surprised that the Constitution Review people did not look at the winner takes all thing as a big deal. They tried, and then they said that district assembly elections, the DC should be elected. But I think they are pushing towards non-partisan lines. That's completely wrong. It has to be elected on the partisan lines because we are partisan. So that at the local level, there's a responsibility. The most important responsibility we take is a partisan one.
Okay.
That is why people don't vote in that election. The district assembly, nobody votes because it's not partisan. There's not enough groundswell of opinion, of opportunity, of this and that. So it doesn't work. So if you really want to do something to benefit the people, you go and say it's non-partisan, you have lost the plot. Partisan, NDC will win, MPP will win. There's NDC place, MPP place. It creates competition. How this district assembly wants to outdo this one because we are MPP, we are NDC.
Okay.
When you go into position in government at Jubilee House, you may have some governments around the country. You may have a government in Takoradi because you have it. That kind of thing creates a better political environment.
Okay.
How it is complicated, I don't understand. This is what will save the Constitution. This is what will save this country. And this is what will even save the presidency and the politics. If borehole gets destroyed in Kintampo, it's President Mahamad's fault. If the light goes off in Upper East region somewhere, it's President Mahamad's fault. So it is impeding development. It has to be the fault of the District Assembly that they voted for sitting in front of them. They can go to his house. It should be his fault.
All right.
It shouldn't be the
so
Jubilee House's fault.
You are all for the partisan election of MMDC.
Absolutely. This decentralization is so important, and it happens in many countries.
Okay.
Nigeria is a big example of how Nigeria has been able to use that to develop a society. Sometimes they are getting ahead of us.
But my final question to you, and it's the same question I asked him. I asked whether he didn't think that it was high time that these critical voices make their ideological stance known. Should we get there? I mean, Paul Adumachi, for instance, come at a lot of flack sometimes. People say, well, you're not a journalist, you're an MPP sympathizer. And I declare that you're MPP, and stop pretending to be a journalist. And he says, well, I don't have to declare where I belong. I can tell you that I'm a right-wing journalist. I mean, Paul, must we get there where journalists, where civil society, other persons within the civil society space and also academia says, look, yes, I'm expressing my opinion on this matter, but this is where I belong, ideologically. Should we get there?
Well, we will get there at some point, but to get there, we have to put other things in place, as I was saying, and then hopefully we can get there. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to implode on us anyway.
Because, for instance, you were telling me off air about how back in the day, it wasn't a big deal for lecturers to say, well, this is where I belong, or this is where I belong, through the way they teach, their courses and so on. I don't know that the same, is still the same campus where you come from, where lecturers...
You see, if you are looking at political science, for example, teaching political science, you need to make some practical examples. Okay. And that may either pigeonhole you to be here or there.
Yes.
You understand? It is not every course that is aligned to politics.
Right.
You see, what is important in academia is about academic freedom, having the opportunity to speak to facts that are available, and then you make your argument in a very logical and conclusive manner. That's it.
Okay.
That is what defines an academic. But as for daily politics and partisan politics, that is not quite characteristic of the academia. That is why issues of the economy, when they come, you expect someone who has that particular background to speak to that. And will be given figures accordingly.
Right.
So if you interpret the figures to be advantageous or disadvantageous, to one or the other, that is your business.
Right.
But in actual fact, the figures that is turned out there, are they not accurate?
Right.
If they are, that is the business of the academia. The slant you put on it, that is the view or the work of the politician.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, gentlemen, I want us to move to some other issues that is of both national concern as also, of course, global concern.
But just
okay.
The other aspect I was looking at is people have done advocacy before this government came to power. Okay, so quite more of them are not having any position.
True.
You get the point?
True.
So how then will you determine their political affiliation?
But must the determination of the political affiliation be based on the appointment? Should that be the case?
Because as far as your advocacy is concerned,
yes,
once you have been given a position,
yes,
in reality you think that the person will be compromised. Yes. But I'm also saying that let's look at it from a different perspective. That is what philosophy does.
Right.
Now, the person has done his advocacy, consistently is doing it, but he's not been given any position. Would you be able to tell his political, affiliation? Maybe you only look at the manner that he does his argument and you conclude, but still, it will still be neither here nor there.
Okay. All right. So, Paul and Jonah, I want us to look at something which is happening in the Middle East. So we talk of the Middle East crisis, and of course that follows the U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on Iran and the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Just this morning, the BBC reported that his son Mustab has been appointed as his successor.
Yeah.
Now, we also know that about close to 1,400 Iranians have lost their lives. In the case of America, 6. I don't think the numbers have changed. And in the case of Israel, I guess the 2 or 3 or so persons have lost their lives. I'm yet to check the latest data on that. But we've also seen a situation where basically this crisis has heightened because America and Israel on one side against Iran, and it sprawled over to some other Middle East countries. So countries like Bahrain, Qatar, countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of them have taken a hit following this Middle East crisis. But back home, what we're more concerned about is how does this affect us? And also the politics of external factors and how that affects us, which has been, for me, the focus of what I call social media banter between the two political parties on social media, where some say that when the NDC was in power, when the NDC was in a position, they had said that external factors, or what we call exogenous factors, don't affect us. And whereas the MPP at the time had a different view, they said, well, it's affected us. And now we are seeing what we're seeing with this Middle East crisis. But of course, there's also issues about our peacekeeping soldiers who are in Lebanon and what has happened to them. The Foreign Affairs Minister has actually issued a statement to condemn what has happened. It's untenable. These are non-combatants. These are persons what's their crime? But they've been caught in the middle of the crossfire. Now, today's Ghanaian Times reports that Ghana demands probe into Lebanon attack as 4 key peacekeepers injured in missile strike. Now, Norman Cooper says Ghana has formally protested to the United Nations following an attack on Ghanaian soldiers serving with the UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon. In a letter addressed to the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the government demands a full investigation into the incident which left some Ghanaian soldiers injured. Ghana demands full, immediate, impartial, and transparent investigations into the attack in which Ghanaian soldiers have been injured. And the letter signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on Saturday, Mr. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, on behalf of the government and the people of Ghana, strongly condemns the attack and calls for those responsible to be identified and brought to justice. Ghana strongly condemns this attack and has further demanded that those responsible be identified and held accountable, as the attack, constitutes a grave violation of international law, amounts to war crime, and affronts the protection of protections afforded to United Nations peacekeeping personnel. The government also urged the UN to take all necessary steps to guarantee the safety and security of members of the Ghanaian contingent serving with the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, which is the UN UNIFIL, as well as other personnel under attack. So quite clearly, the Middle East crisis has a sociological impact, it has a security impact, it has an economic impact, and also has a political impact, and it has a religious impact, because even amongst us Muslims, there's some debate there, but I don't want to get into that because it's a little volatile. I don't want to get into that conversation. Now, let me start with you, Doc. What are you? Yes. We'll talk about that. Yes, we'll talk about that. And also, yes, it's a very important conversation. But back home, the MPA has already signaled that Ghanaians should be bracing up for an increase in export price, which we're going to pay more for fuel, because at the last check, the crude oil had reached about $112, between $107 and $112 per barrel. So quite clearly, it's surging. It starts so that 115, you see, is now around 115, and we started from 65. We're now hovering around 115. So quite clearly, it's spiking, it's surging, and it's escalating. I mean, quite clearly we have it difficult. But what are your thoughts generally about what's happening in the Middle East, and why do you think that Ghana must be worried?
This attack on Iran, for example, by Israel and USA, they've made us understand that, look, it's been 47 years of Iranians, getting under their skin. And so they see President Trump as the one who's going to finish the war. Well, those are some of the war rhetorics. We may have to be more worried about ourselves. In the first place, I think that what happened to our base in Lebanon under UN security is something that is appalling. We need to condemn that in no uncertain terms. Whatever compensation and investigation that ought to be done, followed by adequate compensation, I think that is something that Israel must be ready, to do. I don't want to go into why Israel is attacking Lebanon. Of course, we know Hezbollah also been, a problem to Israel over the years, and even when they were attacking Gaza, they were still also attacking Lebanon. So that long history of friction is there. U.S. attack, on Iran. We all know that Iran is an oil-producing country.
Right.
She is a member of OPEC, and so obviously there's going to be that effect. I can appreciate the cynicism with which some of the MPP leading members, have tackled this particular issue. For example, I remember last week, Monday, on TV3, Mr. Ejapamesa, in one of the arguments, said that, well, we are waiting to see whether the current government will extrapolate or tell us how that, is going to affect Ghana in terms of, so it's like, well, they were poo-pooed with this Ukraine and Russia argument, and they also think that this is a time for equalization. I think that the mischief within that kind of equalization is something that must be cured.
Why?
Look, there are certain things you need to understand. Obviously, COVID affected us. But before COVID, World Bank made us know that there were certain vulnerabilities as far as our economy was concerned. And these vulnerabilities exposed us when we were hit with COVID. So we were creating our own problems until COVID came. Now, the Ukraine-Russian argument that the previous government used as defense. Two things. One, the verdict on you was so bad with 2024 elections. It means that that particular issue ought to be nipped in the bud. Secondly, the new government comes. Russia and Ukraine war is still ongoing. What have been the economic indicators when they came? So they inherited from you 23.8 inflation. They inherited from you about 27 point something inflation, food inflation. They inherited from you 61 or a little over 61% debt to GDP. They inherited from you over 30 or 29 to 30% interest rate, right? They inherited from you the CD to the dollar. All of this period, the war, the Russian war against Ukraine is ongoing. Now, these people have been able to put together a kind of government, a kind of economy that has resulted in positive indicators. Inflation, 3.8, I think it's now 3.3 or so. Their debt to GDP came down as far as 45%. Interest rate has come down as at 14%. The CD to the dollar, of course, currently, is a bit wobbling, but just this one, when I was coming to the studio, is 11.5 or so, right? Then, what is it called? I've mentioned this, the CD to the dollar. Okay, I've mentioned that as well.
I mean, the macro indicators are looking better,
yes.
quite clearly, yes.
So still the war is ongoing. Now, the war is ongoing. They are able to settle free SHS debt. They are able to, some social interventions that are giving parts to young ladies, paying school fees of first years in tertiary institutions, those PWDs. So the war is still there. Now, another war starts. So we now have a new argument. So this is where the equalization begins. That if we did not survive with Russian, and then we're also going to create a mess for you so that you don't survive. This is oil. I've listened to a few of those in the industry, and it appears that we do not directly import from Iran. But you are going to buy it at the international price. And from a little over 60 something, just this morning on BBC, we're looking at $115. We know we are a net exporter of oil. So one way or the other, we are going to make some dividends out of taxes or whatever in terms of those who are going to sell our oil. The percentage you are going to get a little more than. Then we equally import as well. So those who are going to import, of course, it will depend on two main things. The international market price, which we are looking at it now, and then our cedi, the strength of the cedi. So if the cedi weakens, then obviously the impact is going to be more worse than we may have thought. If the international price, right, keeps going up, then obviously we are going to suffer the consequences. So everything now boils down to management. Management of the economy, so that the ordinary citizen, right, does not have that severest of the impact. It will be the miracle of the century if this government is able to, right, with their own management, withstand these shocks that probably in the next opening, I think 16th or so, if they're able to withstand these shocks with some kind of shrewd management to the extent that the impact will be minimal, I think that will be the greatest legacy of the current president. I'm telling you, if they're able to do so. I'm not a petroleum expert, but at least we know what is happening as far as the international market is concerned. Sometimes it may even get to a point where the availability of the product itself. But I know that, having listened to President Trump, he makes us understand that, well, within a little period, he's told them that they should bear with him and sacrifice a little. Within no time, that will be stabilized. If it happens, then obviously. But we shouldn't also forget that we are operating what we call a deregulated industry. So now that the city has been strong over the period and fewer prices, I've never experienced anything like that in the Fourth Republic, where we've seen on a regular basis price of fuel coming down and occasionally about 0.3% going up and so on and so forth. I've never witnessed anything like that within the Fourth Republic. So, as I said, it boils down to management. If they're able to ensure that the impact is minimal, I think Ghanaians will really love their heart out.
All right. So, Paul, let me read this from Franklin Kujo, and it would perhaps set the context for your submission on this matter. So, Franklin Kujo says that I see many of our compatriots in the opposition are happy and prayerfully nursing thoughts that all doom emanating from Iran war will put Ghana in a serious economic bind. He says, truth be told, unless the war prolongs beyond a year, Ghana might not be that terribly hit as happened under the last government, because according to the finance minister at the time, the Russia-Ukraine war exposed the critically dysfunctional underlying economic mobilities in Ghana. At the time, poorly managed vulnerabilities such as inflation at 54%, interest rates at almost 45%, collapsed foreign exchange rate system with the Ghana cedi bleeding heavily against all major currencies, a huge debt burden, inability to pay our debt, extensive fuel, and so many wasteful and corrupt projects such as the cathedral dugouts and expensive elections full of procurement fraud. Today, most of our underlying economic conditions are not that terrifyingly crazy. Inflation is less than 4%. Our debt has been reduced from the junk status to responsible one. Debt to GDP dropped from 62% to 45% last year. Commercial bank interest rates now average less than 20%. The cedi appreciated averagely 30% against the major currencies and economic discipline. Russia-Ukraine war is still on, by the way. That said, we must explore good private sector participation in the management of Tema Oil Refinery and BOST. That should enable us hold crude reserves for at least a year. The NPA says we may have oil to cover up to 5 weeks. That could be problematic. At least we must get going to explore supply of crude products. We will just change our fiscal rules and take over the crude exported by the Jubilee partners and have it refined here for us to use. We shall pay the developers. Please remember to say to those who wish to draw parallels to the Russian-Ukraine war today that most of our underlying economic conditions are not that terrifyingly crazy. Inflation is less than 4%. Our debt has been reduced from junk status to a respectable one. Debt to GDP from 62% to 45% last year. Commercial bank interest rates, and it goes on and on and on. It says Russia-Ukraine war is still on, by the way, and repeats that. Andrew Ejapa, you mentioned him. He's actually sent a message in reaction to what you said. First of all, he says, tell your guys that I'm watching him. And he says, tell him, I was re-echoing what Mr. Mahama said to us when he was in opposition, that Ghana was 7,500 kilometers away from Russia-Ukraine, and Ghana could not possibly be affected by that war. In the same vein, I expect that the Israel-Iran war should not affect Ghana, especially when the economic fundamentals, as he has ably articulated, should not affect Ghana. No, has nothing to do with cynicism. All right, great. So that's from Major Papi. You mentioned him, so he's actually sent me this message in response to what you said. Paul, so yes, that's the Franklin Kujo's write-up on Facebook as well. I mean, he sent me one. All right, Paul.
Well, Franklin Kujo may have a point in some of the things he addresses in terms of application of state resources during the period of the NPP. He may have a point. But the picture he paints prior to the Russia-Ukraine war and the picture he paints right now prior to the Israeli war is different. And it will obviously be different because there was COVID immediately preceding Russia-Ukraine war. So if you are coming out of COVID, you are coming from a terrible situation, and that was the state of affairs everywhere in the world. Everybody's inflation was up. Those who have never seen inflation at 5%, they saw it. Those who have never seen inflation in double digits, they saw it. Those of us who struggle with inflation, double single digits, we shot up into the roof. That was the post-COVID effect of economies. Whilst very small economies like Ghana are thinking about that, and then come Russia-Ukraine war. So the economic fundamentals preceding the Russia-Ukraine war was itself completely wobbling, and that was the state of affairs everywhere. So I'm not sure what the point they are making. Then the point about this, that has changed. Now, since the Russia-Ukraine war, and since Ghana fell into that situation, there was an improvement of that situation coming out of the IMF program in 2023. That improvement was intended to continue. You may well say that the NDC have been better managers of the economy. Fair enough. The jury is still out on that matter. But then you come to the point about the Russia-Ukraine war is still on. The Russia-Ukraine war is still on. The effect of the Russia-Ukraine war at the time it started and its effects now all over the world has completely diminished. Why has it diminished? Because what the Russia-Ukraine war did, which is why it was easy for political spin doctors to say that whatever problem you are facing is not Russia-Ukraine war. It was easy for you to spin that was because the world was unaware of the extensive supply chain connection between Europe and the rest of the world that was controlled by Ukraine. The world was not aware of that. Egypt did not have grain for weeks and months because of the Russia-Ukraine war. This is a war that came to disrupt supply chain. It's not a war about fuel or the things that we can obviously relate to. So if you're a government and you say that your supply chain has been disrupted and therefore prices of commodities which pass through that supply chain will escalate, it's not very simple to explain that to many people, especially when you have a charged political atmosphere where your opponents are spinning the other way. So that is the point of the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, once it started, it is a supply chain disruption. The world, sophisticated as we have become, will always find an alternative to a supply chain disruption. You heard that when they said the Strait of Hormuz had been blocked, there are ways to, America is already thinking of how to avoid that and circumvent all of these things. This is how the world has become. So the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war have been circumvented. The supply chain has been replaced. So to say that the Russia-Ukraine war is still raging, I think that is the worst of the arguments that anybody can make. The Russia-Ukraine war is still raging. How can anybody say that? It's a supply chain disruption. That supply chain has been replaced. The Russia-Ukraine war can go on forever, and it will never have the effect of the time it started. I don't understand how anybody can spin political propaganda and say that Russia-Ukraine war is still on. Really? What's the point you are making? So if you come back to the management of the economic situation, we used to be net importers of petroleum. Now we are both net importers and net exporters. That obviously is a better situation. Until and unless we have the control in our country.
You're talking about the Middle East crisis, the current
yes,
one,
yes,
not Russia-Ukraine war.
Yes, I'm moving to the Middle East crisis.
Okay.
So I'm setting out our petroleum agenda.
Okay.
That we used to be net importers. Now we are net exporters as well. That's a better situation than being net importers only. Until and unless we are able to develop the supply chain and have control over the products that we own and set up a petroleum system, a petroleum regime that has our own control over it, we are always going to be susceptible to global fluctuations. So if you look at over the years, and that's why I started by saying we are net importers, we are net exporters. Now, it was worse before. If you look at since the beginning of the early 2000s, maybe in the 1999, the thinking about Ghana's sustainability in petroleum had begun. And so institutions like BOST, which were not existent, were created, the bulk oil storage. This is all in getting Ghana to own a significant part of the petroleum regime so that we can control the prices for longer periods. That process had started. That was under the NDC. Then President Kufuor came and the NDC, I think they created Tamale Refinery. The Tamale Refinery was always there, but they gave it some special attention. And then there was, you remember there was something called toll debts.
Right.
Okay. And then there's a Ghana Commercial Bank stuff. I'm talking about the beginning of the process that started about 25 years ago to create Ghana's energy sustainability and energy control. So all of these institutions were developed up until NPA, National Petroleum Authority, Petroleum Commission. All of these people are, so once Ghana began to find oil, all of these institutions have been created to try and increase Ghana's control over petroleum fluctuations. So the control that Ghana has over petroleum fluctuations in 2024 is greater than the control that Ghana had 10 years earlier,
right,
whichever government was in place. So in these circumstances, Ghana has better control over petroleum fluctuations because we are here in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We didn't used to have that. We used to be days and months, and did I say months? Days and 2 weeks, and it's gone. When the President Kufuor administration took over in January 2001, panic immediately hit the government because they were told that they have only 2.5 weeks of import cover. So if we have moved from 2.5 weeks in 2001 to 5 weeks in 2026, that's a significant improvement. But let's not anyone say that somebody is a better manager of Ghana's petroleum situation than the other, because we are not yet at the place where we have even 60% control. So whoever is managing it, if the crisis is deep, it will affect you. The reason why Ghana has survived this crisis up until now, and we may survive it even longer, is because of the systems that have been developed over time to increase Ghana's control over the petroleum situation. Started 25 years ago. So we are where we are now because of that work that had been done. I'm sure by the next 10 years from now, a lot more would have been done. So we are where we are as a combination of a state effort. It's not because NDC is a better management of something. Now, where we are is still not where we want to be. So if the crisis hit to a certain level, whether NDC like it, whether they are good managers of the economy, whether they have the best finance minister, the crisis will hit because you are not sustainable. If politicians want to spin this one and use it for election, that is the evil that has brought us to where we are. When politicians know that this is not something to spin, but you want to win election, so you will spin it as being against the government, when you know that the system and the economy that we run, it is unable to resolve certain shocks. You know. But then when the shocks come and you are excited about it in opposition because you believe that it will make the government unpopular, and every economic shock makes every government unpopular. Over the last few days, Americans have been complaining about the sharp rise in petroleum. They are complaining in Europe. So for us citizens, we are electing you to come and sort us out. If there's anything, we complain about it. If I'm opposition and the system allows me to exploit the complaints of the people against the government, even when I am aware that this is really not the government's fault. If you swap the government on Monday, I will be in the same situation. If you swap the government that bring John Mahama to be president in 2021, you will have the same situation. Once we agree on that, then we can now compete on ideas that are original. But if we exploit things that we shouldn't exploit, then we have created a chain that will now be exploited all over. So hope that this crisis doesn't get there. But if the crisis gets to small places where we have to increase petrol by marginal conversations, it will now start. Why are you increasing the petrol? Didn't you say your fundamentals were good? You say that everything is good. You say that you have your dollar, you have your CD. If the CD goes to 12, it will start. You say your fundamentals are good, so why are you complaining? Because a system has been put in place where politicians are exploiting some of these things. That's the problem. That's the problem we have.
Okay. Doc.
Yeah. You see, I can understand where my brother is coming from. There is some form of... you cannot tell me that a government uses 126 ministers at a time, and one comes and is using 58, 60. That is not management, and that is a fluke or it's by accident. No, it's by leadership. In a situation where you find a whole number of MPs calling on the resignation of the finance minister from their own fold, it couldn't have been good management. That is a mark of poor management. Choosing to build a cathedral in a period that you were hemorrhaging, that is not good management. A particular government comes, deciding that, look, I want to have 60 at most, now using 58. He decides to say that, well, you cannot be using DSTV and the state to be paying. You cannot be drawing fuel, right? These are cost-cutting measures that is born out of a kind of leadership. Yes, you may all be exposed to, right, a certain fundamentals. But that is why I'm saying that it will be the miracle of the century, right? If the effect that will come because of this, right, is minimal. And Mr. Franklin Cudjoe suggests to the effect that maybe even if it is a year, we may not experience that. I am not an expert in that field. But these intangibles, right, that the leadership of the president has put in place cannot be ignored. They cannot, right? So if I look at some of these steps, I believe that it will boil down to leadership, It will boil down to some shrewd management. The effect, yes, if it goes on, it gets protracted to a certain level, we are going to have that kind of effect. You cannot in any way, run away from that. I just also wanted to check, for example, Mr. Adumochiri suggests that, well, the Russian listing is there, but it is now a lame argument because they have found different routes. Of course, we made a mountain out of a molehill with respect to using that as an excuse. Maybe at that time, they did not know how to circumvent that, and so with time, it has been. But you still cannot, in any way, ignore the fact that the war is still raging. And you can also not ignore the fact that the effect ought to be there. It may be minimal, but it will still be there. But it is because somebody else is taking a different decision, a different direction altogether in terms of management. So, as a way of putting all the two together and think that, well, when the fundamentals are weak, it will affect you anyway. It doesn't matter the shrewdness of the finance minister or whoever, right, that is handling the affairs of the economy of the country. I think that it has. Okay. Probably, the former president did not listen a lot more to the people that matter with respect to his government. Because, as I said, people who are following you might have seen something in your finance minister to suggest to you that, look, change him. How long did it take for him to change him? To decide that resuscitating the banks, that will cost the nation around 9 billion. You decided to go on the part of what? Collapsing. And at the end of the day, the state had to spend over 25 billion. That is not good management. So we cannot put them on the same, scale and condemn them together, thinking that, well, the crisis have come anyway. Whichever way you look at it is going to affect you. Yes, it is going to affect us. The extent that people have said, and that is why I said that the verdict, yes, I agree, that over the period, we have been using certain things for political gain, which after some years, we are beginning to do away with that. Petro, and the first person that I will mention, his name is Mr. Kokubako, right? After President Kufuor took over, what did we see? He said, no. He's realized that being in opposition and find yourself in government are two different things. We need to bite the bullet. That is, he brought the expression. And Mr. Kokubako also insisted, along some of the argument to enjoy that, look, it appears that going forward, Petro is something that we must not do what? Politics with it. So that narrative also shaped the argument along the line. Until at that time, we had not even gotten fuel, in commercial quantity and so on and so forth. So we have come a long way. But we cannot do away with the fact that you have a new president, we had an old president, that probably never listened to good counsel and rather listened to his finance minister. And so, and of course, people say that Vice President Bawumia was not made to operate freely. Probably all these things could be part of the argument that led to a situation where the government found itself. And the verdict is what Ghanaians gave in 2024. That is the final verdict. No matter the political spinning anybody who put on that, that is the final verdict. And that is that which they must be thinking about. Okay. You understand? So, in actual fact, we just have to pray that things do not prolong as it should be. At the end of the day, if the economy is good, it's good for everybody else.
All right. Kojo Tumbafu sends a message. He says that, good morning, Moro. The closure of the Straits of Hormuz have a direct impact on the importation of finished products in the country. The country's fuel is mostly imported from the refineries who get their crude from the Middle East. For Ejapamesa to simply compare and contrast distances and make an interpolation and comparison is dishonest to say the least. Crude has gone up by 25% in the last few days. After we exhaust the weeks of fuel we have in storage, there will be some knock-on effect. But the prices will never get to levels they were when Akufo-Addo and Ken Ofori-Atta were messing up our economy. One more thing, Paul, bulk oil storage and transportation is a creation of the NDC. Give us the credits we deserve. You talk about politicians this, politicians that. What are you doing on Good Morning Ghana this morning? You host a political show that exploits the political system in this country to garner your audience. Should we stop coming to your show? That's from Kojo Tumbafu.
Should we stop coming to your show?
Yes. Should we stop coming to your show? That's your show. Good evening, Ghana. Now, Yes, McLean says that what's currently happening globally is far beyond the control of any political party, so we must avoid unnecessary politics by the NDC and the hired CSOs. Fuel prices on the international market have surged dramatically from about $60 to around $116 per barrel within a month, and that alone should alert us that the situation is serious. Yes, the CEO of the NPA has already confirmed that Ghana currently has about 5 weeks of diesel and 6 weeks of petrol in stock. The real question we must ask is what happens after these reserves are exhausted? Even advanced economies are considering releasing fuel from the strategic reserves to stabilize markets, and that alone indicates that the global energy situation is not normal. The fact remains, if the conflict in the Middle East drags on, Ghana will also be affected, and fuel prices, transport costs, food prices, and inflation will rise. And the ordinary Ghanaians will bear the brunt of these economic pressures. Now, this morning again, I was listening to the BBC where we're told the G7 are actually considering releasing their reserves onto the market in order to cushion or to alleviate the possible impact.
Their countries.
Yes, yeah, they have a lot of reserves, the G7 countries. They want to release the reserves in order to supply, to sort of shore up the supply of the commodity onto the market. And so we'll look at all of that. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we will be finding out whether indeed the government is walking the talk when it comes to moving away from ostentatious, profligate lifestyle and being more fiscally disciplined. We'll find that out with a reminder from the Executive Secretary to the President about travels abroad and how that is impacting on the publicity. But of course, there's another conversation about the fact that, do you know that the government has reduced drastically and significantly how much we are spending on our independence celebrations, from sometimes 17 million cedis, in some cases 20 million cedis, to now 1.2, 1.5 million cedis. Is this a populist move, or this is highly commendable and this is some kind of a moral victory? We'll find out that when we come back.
Start your Kids Day the right way, filled with confidence to take on any challenge. Pepsodent Kids contains the right amount of fluoride and sugar acid protection to care for their developing gums and teeth. Grab either orange or strawberry so they brush with the sweet flavor they love morning and evening. Pepsodent Kids, giving your children a bright smile for a brighter future.
Ebusiafo ye mama kwa aba eba Children's Palace. Nkwala nyema nyina fie enyi. Yonkwala ntade mani mema nyina ntare nyina wase. Yonkwala shoes, yonkwala duane, yonkwala wipes, yonkwala diapers, yonkwala toys, baby cot. In fact, bibia opama omanyina obenye biwa ase.
Located at East Legon Hills, Nana Chrome KFC. Contact us on 059 6377 172. Children's Palace. Happy children, happy fashion. See you soon. Bye bye.
Finding the ideal property shouldn't be a daunting task. With MNC Properties, property sales, rentals, and management is a walk in the park. We believe everyone deserves a place to call home. That's why we specialize in providing affordable housing options under our flagship project, Fresh Property Joy, specifically designed for low and medium income earners. Our range of customizable homes includes 2 to 3 bedroom standard and executive options, all meticulously crafted using innovative interlocking brick technology technology. We offer flexible payment options tailored to your individual needs, plus litigation-free lands in vibrant and upscale communities that presents the perfect opportunity to build your dream home. We are committed to making affordable housing a reality. Whether you're looking to buy, rent or invest, we've got you covered. Our service team is ready to assist you on 0302 551 917. MNC Properties, choice of class.
Changing, so should you. If you're dreaming, don't be afraid. And in the valleys, keep your head up high. Got to dream with Puma drinks. Puma, yeah. Believe it, you can achieve. Puma. Oh yeah, clap your hands for the whole new vibe. Make me set the bliss. Oh yeah, come alive. Let me hear you.
Puma drinks, a whole new vibe. Another quality product from Casa Precon.
This advert is FDA approved.
The Ghana Trade Fair Company is proud to announce the most anticipated shopping event of the year, the Eid Al-Fitr Grand Sales 2026, from Wednesday 18th March to Monday 23rd March 2026 at the prestigious West Hills Mall. Discover stunning fashion, exquisite jewelry, luxurious fragrances, innovative gadgets, and beautiful homeware, all at incredible sales prices. Showcase your product to thousands of eager shoppers during this peak festive season. Register now for your best spot. Contact the Ghana Trade Fair Company Limited 0597 423 304 or 0244 469 451 or 050 2500 632. Fancy Gadam will be performing live at the fair. Celebrate it in style. Eid Al-Fitr Grand Sales 2026. Partners: Ghana Enterprise Agency, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, Media Partners, UTV, Peace FM, Kasapa FM, Metro TV, Bina TV, Channel 1 TV.
Watching Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro, and the show is also live on 94.1 FM. I'm here with Mr. Paul Adjomochi, who is the host of Good Evening Ghana, and also a senior broadcast journalist and former board chair of the Ghana Airport Company Limited. He's here with us, and also Dr. Jonathan Otri, who's a senior lecturer with the University of Cape Coast, and both of them are here. We're looking at quite a number of issues. We've looked at the Middle East crisis and what that portends for Ghana, and again, the debate as to whether external factors affect Ghana and to what extent, or what kinds of external factors can affect Ghana's economy. Ghana's economy significantly. So my guests have weighed in on that. Now, we are now moving to another topic, but for me, it bothers more on what the posture of the government is, i.e. whether they are walking the talk, whether they mean business when they say they want to move away from profligate, wasteful lifestyle, and now focus more on, fiscal discipline, which is that if you want to spend, there must be value for money. Now this matter has come up for two reasons. Now, over the weekend, we had the Minister for Government Communication, also the spokesperson for the President, saying repeatedly and actually emphasizing and reiterating the fact that for the first time, in fact, for the second time, government is spending far less than what we saw in the past on Ghana's independence anniversary celebration, which is that we used to spend close to 17 to 20 million cedis. We're now spending 1.2, 1.5 million cedis in celebrating Ghana's Independence Day. It happened at the forecourt of the Jubilee House, and as compared to, say, the Independence Square. But there's another story which ties in with all of this, with the whole issue about government expenditure lifestyle. Now, we're told that government has halted foreign travel for SOE boards. Now, the Times reporter says President John Dramani Mahama has directed that boards of state-owned enterprises and other public institutions should immediately stop undertaking international travel for training, conferences, retreats, and study tours at the expense of the state. Now, a directive issued from the office of the President in Accra on Thursday and signed by the Secretary to the President, Dr. Kalisus Mahama, said the decision follows concerns about the rising frequency and cost of such trips, which often involves multiple board members and extended, itineraries. According to the statement, the expenses associated with airfares, accommodation, per diems, and other logistics have placed avoidable pressure on the public purse at a time the government was pursuing fiscal discipline and prudent public financial management. While acknowledging the importance of continuous learning and exposure to international best practice, the presidency noted that a growing trend of overseas travel by boards had raised serious concerns regarding the responsible use of public resources. Now, under the new directive, all sector ministers have been instructed to ensure that the boards of SOEs and public institutions do not undertake international travel funded directly or indirectly with public funds. However, where an international engagement is considered absolutely necessary and cannot reasonably be undertaken locally or virtually, a formal request must be submitted through the supervising minister to the Chief of Staff at the Presidency for the express approval of the President before any arrangements are made. Where a board considered that as international engagement is absolutely necessary and cannot reasonably be undertaken locally or through virtual means, a formal request must be submitted through the sector minister to the Chief of Staff at the Office of the President for the express approval of His Excellency, the President, before any commitment or arrangements are made. Such requests must include detailed justification outlining the purpose and expected outcomes of the trip, its strategic relevance to the institution, the number of participants involved, the estimated costs and reasons the objectives cannot be achieved through local or virtual alternatives. The government has also urged ministers and the affiliated institutions to prioritize local training programs in-country retreats and partnerships with reputable local universities and professional bodies as more cost-effective options for capacity development. The directive forms part of broader government efforts to strengthen expenditure controls, reduce non-essential public expenditure, and redirect limited national resources to priority programs, infrastructure development, and social interventions that directly benefit Ghanaians. Ministers have been asked to bring the directive to the immediate attention of boards, chief executive officers, and management teams of state-owned enterprises and public institutions under their supervision and ensure strict compliance. Doc, what do you make of this? So there's an independence celebration. It's now dropped from 20 million to 1.5, and then there's this. What is this government trying to? What is it trying to communicate to Ghanaians?
Certainly prudence.
Okay.
Financial prudence, and if you listen carefully to what the president said during the State of the Nation address, I think the first preliminary words that he used, leadership. And I think that is very instructive. Leadership does a lot of things, right? And so I will still, say that this is born out of what? Good leadership. Prudence, financial prudence, but you may also have to assess in terms of calculation as to how things of that nature may equally go as far as to affect the productivity of these state institutions. But that being said, there is a caveat. And that caveat is that there must be a justification, and it must be routed through the what's it called? The
Chief of Staff.
The Chief of Staff, and then see the approval of the President. I think we spoke about this behind the scenes.
Right.
And then Mr. Ochi feels that that issue, should also be discussed. And I think, as I said, it is in order.
Okay.
The other aspect, of course, you need to look at the political implication of such a communication as well, because definitely people will look at it and say that, well, and they acknowledge that in the letter indicating that they have seen a certain trend, right? That acknowledgement is in order. So an edit comes and they're saying that you should cease doing things of that nature. And as I said earlier on, behind the scenes, there are some of these boards, that there is the need for their technical competencies to be enhanced. That in itself should also probably tell the president that it's not everybody that ought to be on a certain board. If you are on tour, the technicalities of petroleum and other things, there are others. No human being is not teachable. Every human being is teachable. And probably along the line, they will get to know a lot more stuff and could even better those who have a background initially, because you've seen things of that nature. So I asked myself, I was talking to a colleague, a friend who's an MP, I said, so why can't training of this nature be done here? And if it is not going to be done here, what are the cost implications? You need to do the cost-benefit analysis. How, if you don't have such a training out there, if you don't have it, it will affect the company here. And whether we do not have the expertise here, could we also think of the people who have the expertise abroad? Can't we let them come here, right? You do the cost, benefit analysis. Can they come here? If it's a week, program or 2 weeks, can you look at that option as well? But of course, you are looking at per diem, accommodation, cost of flight, and other things. If they do the general calculation, then certainly it's a bit costly and probably may not inure to the benefit of the company. It may, but if the company's financials, right, are not in good state, then it means because the state institutions are still going to add more burden, and it will become business as usual, because yesteryears, some particular, government left huge, sums of, debt on the finances of these state institutions. So it becomes business as usual if you allow things of that nature. That will compound the debt of these state institutions. So I think that the president has demonstrated leadership. But as to whether this has been a conduit through which people make some money, then maybe that is where we need to discourage that. But if genuinely the training is important, they can go ahead, but they can look at alternatives. Can it be done here? If it is done here, what will be the cost? If we can also allow those who are going to the training come to Ghana and do that. But if the state institution can also afford and let these people have that kind of training, that is where the president, through the communication is to say, the chief, the executive secretary, saying that if that is the case, there must be a justifiable reason. And of course, you must prove source of funding. And if that will not become a burden for the state, why not?
You've not talked about the pomp and pageantry that's typically associated with the celebration of Independence Day, which has now become like a thing of the past.
Yes. And
as part of the cost-cutting.
I think the cost-cutting measure even affected the speech of the president. It was very brief. It didn't go on that, tangent as the state of the nation. I mean, you could see that some of the things that he said, were there. So there was no reason for him to appear repetitious.
Right.
And of course, he praised leadership of the past, where we've come from. We need to honor our heroes, and then to ensure that the agenda, the reset agenda, sees the light of day.
Okay.
The speech was beautifully done, leadership, everything. It was brief, and that was it. The cost-cutting measures started last year, where it was done at the Jubilee House. Instead of, I think, 20 million or so, they had to spend about
1.5.
1.5. This year too.
Same.
So it is not populism. It's about the fact that, you want to demonstrate leadership so that if labor, right, is asking for increment here and there, the leader is showing the direction that your finances are not being used, right, in a haphazard way. They are being used prudently. And if yesteryears we're spending 17, 20 and more, we are spending 1.5, so it means that it can be done.
Okay.
Probably next year, he may even decide to reduce it. So if there is this consistency in the leadership that the president, is given. And I think that is something probably that has come about as a result of hindsight. I always say that you should thank God that he has been given a second chance whilst alive, and that you should see it as a boon for losing 2016 elections and coming back again. And
But do you think they should be the gold standard?
Anything that will not lead to wastefulness.
By the state of the economy. Because there's some people also feel that, look, that the Independence Day celebration has lost a bit of a shine because it's not an Independence Square.
Well, that is just a matter of symbolism.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a matter of symbolism. When we were doing at the Independence Square, were we not hemorrhaging in debt?
Right.
Was the economy that good? We were spending because of pomp and budget and
But
flamboyance.
It's once in a year. It's not a current expenditure.
If you have it and you think that that expenditure it is prudent, you can go ahead.
Okay.
So
all right.
Austerity will be the judge.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah, let me start with the independence.
Low budget, low cost independence.
And
then you also have boards of SOE. So if you were there, if you're serving this government in your capacity as board chair, this is what you would have been told to do.
I'll come to that.
Okay.
I'll come to that because it's not new at all.
Okay. It's not new?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But is it new to you? Haven't you seen Fremont Paris sign letters like this? Somebody should travel. This is not the first time NDC, since John Mahama's new government is doing this. Not new. I'll come to the details of that. Let's start with the independence celebration. I'm watching something which seems like a novelty to me, where the president of Ghana has decided that he is reducing public spending, and it appears that there's disquiet about it. I've never seen that before. This is the first time a president of Ghana is looking at a budget item and says, I'm cutting this. So it would appear like the analogy is like the parliament loan for cars. And DCMPP will disagree. When they are doing the loan, they sack the media. It's in camera. And then they agree and then sort it. The reason why there's a disquiet about the independence conversation, even though normally it should be prudent and widely applauded 100%, where a president is cutting costs on any matter that is a government spending. The reason why this is a problem is that the independence spending, whilst it's a government spending, is a major stimulant of the economy in all of those places. So the budget of 17 million cedis that is applied, they buy 4,000 flags. It's made by people. They order it from Ghanaians. They know that every March the flags will come. So they prepare for it. They have their staff. They do 4,000 flags. That's why those days you see, Lord Comey used to be in charge of that. You see the flags all over. Ashanti region, 3,000 flags is gone. Brown Ahafo region, okay. Ghana Education Service, budget, independence, rehearsal. So they contact the kinky seller. We are going to do rehearsal for 1 week. So please, we'll buy the kinky from you. On Independence Day itself, they give the children food after. Voter region, boom, gone. Chief of staff sign. This gone. That is what it's about. It's not about any politician spending any money. President Mahama has been president before. They all know it. That's the independence spending across the country. It's an economic stimulant. Our problem is not spending. Our concern is that when government is spending, it must spend on things that benefit the people, not on themselves. That's really the conversation. That government spending must spend on things that benefit people. That is why the argument against free SHS was relevant in some areas, but it was also very sad because that was one of and the World Bank recently said that free SHS is the most impactful policy since 1957. That was one of the policies where government spending was being given to the people. That everybody can benefit from something and feel Ghanaian. Nobody believed the free SHS promise. Nobody believed it. I mean, they thought that it's another politician talking that he says you make HIPAA. Yeah, that's part of the reason why President Mahama profited from being able to promise, especially in 2020 relating to the Okada, was that Akufo-Addo had restored the confidence of Ghanaians about promises of politicians. That's the reality. Before the 2017 government, we laugh about it. Oh, as for campaign, they will say this. And we grew up hearing about, they say they are going to put a railway in the water. And we laugh at politicians when they say they can do a bridge over your head. They say they can do this, they can do that, they can do this, they can do that. But when Akufo-Addo promised free SHS and it looked like it's not possible, and he was able to deliver it, Then it was restored again. So when the president says, I'll do something, they know that he'll be able to do it. That's part of the reason why President Mahama is taking flag for the slow start of the 24-hour economy. Because he's been told that Akufo-Addo said he'll do free. So when he came, September, he launched it. Where is the 24-hour economy? You have done 1 year. Akufo-Addo is the benchmark. Because he is the one that we can remember in recent history who said, I will do something, and he did it. And that something was about spending money on people. It's not about politicians buying cars. It's about taking the government spending and giving it to Ghana Education Services. I've paid the school fees of the children who are coming. I've paid it. Are you going to pay the school fees and go for kickback from the headmaster that he should give you kickback? How are you going to do that? So that's a spending that is noble, and it's a spending that helps. The reason why people are complaining about the independence is that the independence is such similar spending. It's spending that goes right down to the grassroots of your political party, right down to the basic end of the society. Everybody benefits from Ghana's independence. And it really tells the independence story. It's a day of freedom. It's a day of celebration. And so you have to that's why, as you said in your concluding remarks, talking to Prof, was that people are saying that the independence vibe is gone. That's it. That's the point. It's a point of national unity, and you spend taxpayers' money for that. That's not the one that you are cutting. You should be cutting other things. You rename Kotoka International Airport and paid money to who? One contractor. Independence going to 1,000 people, you won't pay. One contractor, you will pay. The greatest good is for the greatest number of people. So that's what the independence is about. So that's why you are seeing what you are seeing. I don't know how the government is going to sustain a very dull 70th anniversary of Ghana's independence. I don't know how they're going to do it. NDC did Ghana's 40th anniversary, MPP did 50th anniversary and 60th anniversary. So since 40, NDC will now have the next opportunity to do a big milestone in the history of this country, 70. Is that what that's going to happen? All the KK sellers, their March bonus is gone. It's not coming. The people who make flag, March bonus gone. Those who do T-shirt, March bonus gone. John Mahama has taken it. He doesn't want to share it. But when it's about them, they do it. The ministers have bought cars. Gold Board has money. It's with people. We see all these things. And then when it's about the very basic guy who's selling kinke, you say that I don't want to spend. And you are presenting it as prudence. That, oh, I don't. That is why you are hearing the noises you are hearing. I'm not making those noises. That is what all the media say that, is this really Independence Day? You go to Koforidua, you send them 0 cedis. You send Kumasi 0. You send Secondary Takrady 0. Axim 0. District Assembly 0. North Dai 0. Everywhere 0. Accra, then we go home quiet. Are we not independent? Are we not proud of it anymore? Do we not want to be the Black Star of Africa anymore? Why are we quenching the fire of the nation with these settings and overzealous? I'm not corrupt. Who says somebody is corrupt? Nobody is saying anybody is corrupt. Nobody has told you. Don't chase your ghost. Don't chase shadows. Present what the people of Ghana are used to.
But we're broke, Paul.
We have been which independence celebration? It is because you are broke. That's why you have to stimulate the economy. It is because you are broke, and you wish you could do this thing every month. As a proper situation, we should be able to do this every month, but you can't do it every month. So at least that sacred March event, let it go. Deduct so it's 1.5 million that was spent. Ghana's GDP is $69 billion per annum. $69 billion per annum. Okay, so you have cut a spending of 17 million to 1.5 million. Put it in the equation and see what you've done. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Your point is infinitesimal.
Yes. And this is something that is going to benefit people. Revive the base, not of politics, but of the whole country. We are used to a certain excitement. It makes us Ghanaian, whether we are poor or we are rich. In fact, if you watch social media over the last 5 years, we, the African countries, we celebrate the independence more than Denmark. America is huge on independence. But if you look at the other country, go to Nigeria's Independence Day on 1st October and see over the last 5 years what social media has brought. Look at the small effect of the jersey when we started wearing it last week. You see, it's a feeling that we need to put us together and generate patriotism for the service of the nation. Independence Day, everybody's Ghanaian. Nobody's NDC, nobody's MPP. We all go to the march past, salutes and this, and we are happy with it. In the afternoons, there are parties all over. Even the poorest people, they are at the beach. This is Independence Day because somebody has still sold flag, somebody has sold kenke, somebody has sold this, everybody has pocketed their money. People are happy. then you say you don't want to spend. Well, on the other matter, the issue of the guy, the letter, don't travel. You see, in this country, we are very concerned about certain things. This don't travel. This is not the first time it has happened in the Fourth Republic. Before it's uncountable. J.J. Rawlings, Nana Atudazi, he has signed some of this don't travel, because we are economic something. Wafako John Pienim, he has had to do this, don't travel. Framework Paris on will remember, it's recent, don't travel. Fenjo Mahama arrived, Callisto started it. Then the government comes back and says that they are observing a certain trend about appointees and a certain expenditure pattern. Why are they telling us? Why are they telling we, the general public? Why? You have appointees. You see that there's a trend that they are undergoing that is not correct. They are your appointees. You have power over them. You are broadcasting to the spectators that I am warning him that he shouldn't travel. Why should we know? You step up the gear and crack the whip, announce sanctions. That is the least you should do with us, the general public, is the deterrent value, as the lawyers say. So you announce sanctions. That Office of the President, it is noted, the following boards have been banned by the President from traveling. In addition, their board fees have been forfeited for the next 6 months because they embarked on such travels as was discussed by the Chief of Staff that they shouldn't do. Please take note. That's a deterrent value. That we can tell us. Because you are giving us a deterrent value. That look, in this system, if you do this will happen to you.
I think there's a challenge there, Paul, because I don't recall that when the directive came out for the appointees, i.e.
You mean the code of conduct?
The code of conduct. I doubt if it included the board members. Because I think this is the first time the board members have been advised to stop backing on those travels. So it will be difficult for them to be sanctioned.
Okay, so you don't sanction them, you can warn them.
Yeah.
After warning, sanction.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is that what we need to hear is the sanction, the deterrent value. If you are working as a government, unless you want to give an impression of something, you don't have to tell us this.
Right.
Because this letter, we have seen it come back for many governments. So if you, maybe the government finds that there's something, there's a news gap or something and they want to fill it, because why? You are telling us that you are sanctioning your board members that they shouldn't travel except it's essential. They should. It's not. It's even a national security problem. Why are you telling the whole world?
But Paul, don't you think that it's also important for the public to be aware that this is government stance or government policy on this matter?
No, government has control. Government can punish. The public need not be aware of nothing. Government has control. But there's a lot. That's what I'm saying. That what the people need to know is what you have done about it. The deterrent value. This is what I stand for, and therefore this is what I've done about it. So if you want to join my government, please be aware. Right. If I appoint you as a board member, please be aware that you can't come and do this. If you do these things, these are the sanctions that you have to encounter. That's what the government should be telling us. Unless the government wants to create some impression as if it's a new government, yeah, it is still quite a new government.
Go beyond advising and asking them not to do it.
I'm going well beyond for something for all of us.
That's just the point you're making, which is that beyond telling them what they shouldn't do, tell us what would happen to them if they don't comply.
Yeah.
That's the point.
What's the deterrent value? Okay. Either tell us what will happen to them. So the letter could have been, government has observed so and so. Henceforth, any board that does so and so.
I thought I saw.
Then we can measure it.
I thought I saw something, but you
So when you sit on the plane and then you see somebody who's board member, you can measure it. But this is the big solution I think will help all of us as a developing country. Why is there not a portal that you can go as a journalist and check which minister is out of town and what is he doing? Are you
I follow.
Yes.
I follow.
There should be a portal like that. I mean, that's what a transparency quotient, where there's a portal where we can check. So I can check. Okay. Case Latufort, Finance Minister of Ghana, is currently in Switzerland. He's in Switzerland with a committee of so and so. They are doing that. Okay. Then I put in maybe Kojo Oponkroma. Kojo Oponkroma, Minister for Works and Housing Ghana, is currently in America. He's doing that. Why don't we have a portal like that? Right. Yeah, that's easy to achieve. We
should be checking the ministry's portals and see whether.
No, that's easy. I mean, the Chief of Staff can have a travel portal for government.
Right.
So
a travel portal for government.
A travel portal for government. Yes, travel portal for government. So in transparency, there may be some that may be national security issues. So you can go further to find that out. So if you enter, say maybe Albert Kandapa. They have to enter further. Who are you? And why do you want that information?
Okay.
Then you can go and say, I'm a journalist from New York Times. You can verify me on so and so and so. Then they can tell you, well, Abekandapa is in America for so and so.
Okay.
Or presidential travels. Presidential travels are announced anyway, but they have a way of announcing it. They announce when it's already gone.
Okay.
So in consideration of national security, there has to be a government portal that is published where people can access this information.
Right.
If it is of national security consequence and cannot be shown, there still has to be a way in which the person looking for the information can identify himself, be verified in a certain way, and then the information can be given to him.
Okay.
So that's it. It may be something that the RTI can hold as part of their work. Or it can sit at the RTI.
Let me bring this off our viewers because our time is almost up. We have just 5 minutes to go.
Okay.
But good morning, Aldo. I'm Eben from Kwabenya. Tell Paul there's no need in celebrating independence luxurious way if the individuals can't have 3 square meals a day. How can a country celebrate independence meanwhile when most schools are under trees? A big no power for Paul. If I have my way, we shouldn't even celebrate it at all because it's mandatory to celebrate birthday period. It's not mandatory to celebrate birthday period. Alhaji Hamza from Pig Farm, he sends this message. He says, Alhaji, good morning. Salam alaikum. He says, good morning, my brother. Interesting and sad listening to Paul talking about political opponents trying to spin facts to their advantage. In my humble opinion, if anyone who is trying hard to spin facts to Ghanaians is Paul Adumachi, and he has demonstrated that this morning. Is Paul telling us that he's not aware that the economy of Ghana is on the right direction? Now, if Paul cares to know, the economic fundamentals are out there for us to see. The economy of Ghana today is rated as B- just for over 1 year in office. But the same economy was rated as junk economy under the reckless mismanagement of the MPP. Paul and co should give us a break. We have a country to govern. This one, Kojo Chumbafu is back. He says, Moro, my brother Paul says says that Akufo-Addo restored confidence in politicians such that President Mahama benefited. If it wasn't so laughable, I would cry. Is that the same government that Fagbara Bawumia disavowed and claimed that he wasn't going to campaign on their lack of achievement? Is that the same government that took our pension, savings, and expropriated our bank accounts to pay for Kenoforete's gambling?
What I said.
It says, Paul, with all the deference I can muster, President Mahama models himself on some past president of this country. Akufo-Addo isn't one of them. Now, this one here from Reverend Samuel Ej says, nice discussion. Greetings to you and to your partner, Moro. I totally disagree with Paul in regards to the prudent management of this nation. Moro, in their time, the arrogance of power and the mismanagement was too much. Moro, you wouldn't believe how many people were crying because their business were hijacked by the powers that be. That is why they were punished by Ghanaians, and that should be a great lesson to the government today. That when climbing, the people you meet are the same people you will meet when you are descending. Now, Alhaji Mukhtar ED says that, good morning, my regards. What Paul is saying, what is Paul saying? Does he listen to himself at all? The MVP should stop the doom mongering and be realistic. Ghana belongs to all of us and we're equal in all aspects and must pray for the success of Ghana's government. The successes chalked so far is a result of discipline and prudence. The politicization of everything national and the partisanship must stop at some point. What is this lamentation after his full participation in the past misgovernance by the MPP which plundered and ravaged Ghana? Mr. David Carter says, good morning, Moro. Leadership is very important in decision making. You see leadership importance when the crisis surfaces. A typical example is the UAE, where you see leadership assuming okay, I didn't get this, but Kwame Nkrumah established GamePad to train the nation's civil and public servants for today's needs. Why is the nation allowed this to happen? The Dubai government has established a similar institution to train their public and civil servants. They're getting results, and we're failing after all the foreign trips. Okay, this one. Okay, all right. So, Doc, I'll take just two minutes from each from you, and then we can. Oh, sorry, let me look at this. So, Papa Bisu says the Ghana's problem under the previous MP government was reckless spending without even checking whether projects were completed or whether they were there. Typically, example, $12 million for Alugu Dam, which never was same as $2 million SkyTrain, $43 million Odo River, or Odo Drain. Where are all the above? Paul Adumachi, kindly stop this, your personal approach in your analysis for once. Haba, Papa Bisu sent that message. So Prosper Ashikwe says, Moro, good morning. Paul became intelligent overnight and he just mooted the idea of a portal. We want to know, is he an MPP member now? At least can we say we need to know this? Okay. Now this one here who's Arnold Asanga 2063 is watching us on YouTube. He says, whether you like Paul or not, we have to agree. He's intelligent. I don't always agree with him, but he knows how to make you reason with him, even if you disagree. This one here, okay. All right, so we take 2 minutes each from my guest. And, oh, sorry, let me look at this. So, Honorable Andrew Ejapa Mesa is back, and former MP for Sekondi says it's interesting how our NDC friends always discount the 2012-2016 era when they are talking about the same President Mahama. And then Eves, so the former MP for Tema Central, is back. I'm sorry, he's back. He sent us this message. Moro, Paul has spoken my mind this morning. He has re-echoed my submission on your show on Independence Day. Ghana's problem is simply the structure of the state, and the earlier we restructure it to reflect who we are, the better for all of us. Good morning. Eves, good to hear from you. So I'll give perhaps a minute each to, so in a nutshell, what are you saying? Do you agree with some of the things he said? He talks about, he makes the economic stimulant argument about the celebration of Independence Day.
Well, I do not know.
Do you find that argument
I don't have the breakdown of the expenditure pattern of the organizers. But I don't think that in those years when we stimulated the economy, we saw the growth as we were looking for. This is where we find ourselves. If today CLOSAC has declared strike, isn't it?
Yes.
How did that happen? It's an agreement that they had. Government is a continuum. But if government is supposed to ensure that, things of this nature do not recur, they must be seen to be prudent in the way and manner they expend state resources. When the president took over, he said that, well, he has to look into the books, right? And that they were all going to create, and then as a nation, they will share. So that includes labor. I don't think that this business as usual of always spending when in actual fact we don't know where the expenditures end up, that has not in any way helped our economy over the years. We cannot give that we don't have as a nation. I don't also think that it is a business of government. I'm not saying that is what he said. Once these celebrations take place, Kenke and those things will still be done. People will buy individually. It is not the government. It's not the business of government organizing it in such a way that Kenke will not be sold. Kenke will be sold. People will buy it as individuals. That should not be the burden of the state. We have to move from business as usual. I think that what he implied, with some of the decision of government with respect to this Independence Day and this board, the decision of the state as it were to ban such travels. He feels that in a nutshell, it is more populism than a deterrent. So if it's supposed to be something that would deter, then we need to see some kind of punitive measures, right? Leveled against. I think that governance, you will have to start from somewhere. You have to start from somewhere. Each board is doing whatever they intend to do to ensure they grow and develop. The one who is at the apex says that, look, we are seeing or witnessing a certain trajectory. We believe that this is something that must be done.
He doesn't have a problem with that. He said go beyond that and tell us that failure to do so, this will be the consequences.
Well, I don't think they've gotten there yet. Everybody has code of conduct ethics that has been, published.
All right.
And even this does not even affect every board. Those that are commercial, right? I don't think they are even part of this. But as long as it is, as long as it is prudent, and I don't think that it is just like a headmaster and that kind of head-teacher relation, where people are serving freely, right? For the state, you issue some kind of edict against them here and there. This letter is supposed to, right? Stay off their hands, from some things of that nature, until otherwise stated, and it's justified. You cannot go ahead.
So
I don't think it is populist
we'll have to go.
decision.
Unfortunately, our time is up. But let me say that please do remember to brush your teeth with Pepsodent. It's extremely important. Pepsodent keeps reminding you that do remember to do that too. Brush your teeth in the morning with Pepsodent, and do same in the evening before you sleep. So I want to say a big thanks to Paul Adomontre, and who is the senior broadcast journalist and also host of Good Evening Ghana, former board chair, Ghana Airports Company Limited. Before I go, just 30 seconds. My very good friend is celebrating his birthday today, and I cannot help but to say that Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. He's the man, Halidu Haruna. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Zongo Development Fund. Please put his picture up there. Yes, today is his birthday. Halidu Haruna. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Zongo Development Fund. Happy birthday. Hardworking man, a very intelligent man, and he's a man of integrity as well. We appreciate you. And let me know if there's anything happening after Iftar, today being your birthday, so that we can join you. That's him, Halidu Haruna. Happy birthday, Halidu. Anyway, my name is Howard Moore. Thanks for watching. And I say assalamu alaikum. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Every generation is blessed with a hero, a beacon that is to bring hope and inspiration to his people. With a supporting mother who trusted him with her source of livelihood, the will to achieve was birthed, and the opportunity to make things greater was captured. Like precious gold, his beginning was rough. Determined to fulfill God's plan for his life, he defies the odds and makes it out of the dark. Not just for his family, but to become a blessing to humanity.
One, look for the opportunities in your country and what you can do at your time. The second is start and try it. Don't be scared by moving into it with risks and failure and other things. Failure is also the curve of success, I always state. Try it. Have the ambition that you will succeed by all means. Try it. If you try the first and doesn't succeed, go to the second. You will succeed.
In 2006, our vision was clear: to streamline the collection of waste while upholding the dignity of those involved in the process. The Obuafo tricycle emerged as a symbol of empowerment, a three-wheeled marvel designed for efficiency, maneuverability, and sustainability. But progress is relentless, and as the world evolved,